I have really nice microphones. They're all in my office. I should bring them home. It would be better.
Yeah, I need to get a new one. But anyways, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I am making it through. It's been kind of a rough month. There's just
Oh,
been a lot of drama and craziness, but I'm here. I'm still standing, and I'm ready for June.
drama is the worst. Like it's the worst.
Yeah, and that kind of led to today's topic because this has been coming up a lot for me and then clients, people within Win Without Law School. And it's this theme of getting attacked, where
Hmm.
somebody just starts yelling at you or blames you for something.
Hmm.
And it's often in the family law context, either through, with your ex or soon to be ex, or a court case with opposing counsel. There can be a lot of emotions that come to the surface. And what I wanted to talk about today is, how do you deal with that? How do you not just give up? How do you not just go into deep depression? Because it can be really tough and hit you to your core when you're just getting attacked constantly for literally just being who you are.
Right. Or having a different position. Like when you're in litigation, when you're in family court, you have different positions. And, we trade positions. And then when there's no meeting of the minds, it's often one party will just keep bashing the other party. Do it my way, do it my way, do it my way. Why won't you agree? Why won't you agree? And the thing is, like, you don't agree. Like you gotta take it to the judge, and it doesn't have to be personal. You don't have to get all wound up. You can just understand, like, this is my status quo. I'm stuck here until we get a different decision. Or
And I think that's the real challenge, is not taking it personally.
yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
you and I, like, we've been doing this a long time. We've been in the trenches. We come up with some coping mechanisms, but for a lot of people, they have one case and they maybe never even been to court before.
And
And
we really need to
we're
talk about.
used to the conflict, we're used to the back and forth. We're used to, giving it, taking it, the whole thing. But if it's your only case and it's the first time you're going through court, it can really throw you off balance. And you're already going through a big transition. You're already going through a huge life change. And then there's all of these attacks that start coming in, attacking you as a parent, attacking you as a spouse, attacking you financially, attacking you because you didn't say something the right way, or you didn't respond the way they wanted. And I don't know, I guess the theme that's really been coming up this month for me and for a lot of people that I've been talking to is, I feel like right now, the attacks that are coming in are this calling to step in and really, like, connect with yourself and your self-confidence. Are you going to let this attack take you down? Are you going to let it change you? Are you going to be up all night? Are you going to be stressed out? Are you going to be so depressed? Or are you going to say, you know what? That's just their opinion. But I know who I am. I know I'm a good mom. I know I was a good wife. I know that I'm honest financially. I know that I do speak with respect, and just really connect with, what you know to be true. But sometimes that can be the hardest thing to do when you have somebody really coming after you.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier coping mechanisms. We as family law attorneys have to learn them because we absolutely do go to battle for you and get attacked for you. Like, that's part of our job. We know that's part of our job, but it does actually take a toll. And many burn out, and we come up with coping mechanisms. And that's what we're going to be able to talk about today. Before we dive into topics, for those of you who are new, my name is Billy Tarasio, Arizona family law attorney. My office is Modern Law and it's in Phoenix. This is attorney Julie LeBenz. Her office is in Sedona. And we together own Win Without Law School. Do you want to talk to them a little bit about Win Without Law School?
Yeah, so we started Win Without Law School last fall, and it's just an amazing program. It teaches people how to represent themselves in family law cases, from divorce to custody to post-divorce or post-establishment. So like a modification or enforcement. We go through contempt. We go through orders of protection. I mean, we really cover a lot of ground. So the trainings are all in the members area, along with fill in the blank forms, video instructions on the forms. everything to kind of take you from start to finish, depending on what your case is. We've got it all there. But then there's also live Q&A where people get to come on, ask questions, create community, and work through whatever challenges they're facing. So it's the people who are participating are really involved. They're coming, they're asking questions, they're engaging, and a lot of them are starting to get into some pretty serious litigation, like they've tried to settle things. And so there's a lot of questions about, well, what about this form? And what about that form? And my exhibits, and I've got a trial date. The other side wants to continue. There's just a lot of moving parts, and we're able to talk about all of that stuff. And then also can sometimes get feedback from the group, which is helpful too. So the people who are really engaged are really liking it, and keep coming back time after time for not only the legal information, but I think also for the community.
And your coaching. So Julie is training quite a few people within my office, interns, new LPs, new lawyers, and they are loving your training. They're loving it. They're loving how you give excellent feedback, real time, actionable. They feel like they get better every single time. So you are the perfect person for people to be getting coaching from. So thank you for being awesome at that.
Thank you, Billy. Yeah, this is a different course that I created for Billy's interns and LPs and soon to be lawyers. Mm-hmm. And it's this in-depth trial skills course. So I created a fake case, and now we're going through each element of the case. And I was wondering if people just in general would be interested in trying something like this, because I know a lot of people get into law shows and are like, oh, I've always wanted to try that. Mm-hmm. So, if that's something you'd be interested in, let us know. We could maybe open up something just for people to try out in general, if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, it's like we put on a mock trial. We go through direct examination, cross-examination, and it's in the context of this divorce case that I created. So it's been a lot of fun. It's all women in the course right now. They're all doing an amazing job. And what's so great about it is it's like this safe space where you get to try things out and get feedback, instead of having that happen in the courtroom where, there's a lot on the line and it's really stressful. And of course, you want to go into court looking like a pro. Right. And so you don't have to, so you can practice and learn the skills in this safe environment, and then go into the courtroom and feel really confident.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So we do these lives. We're going to actually be taking them to our Win Without Law School members. So you'll only be able to participate in the lives if you sign up to become a member at winwithoutlawschool.com. It's free to sign up. So go ahead and definitely do that if you like these lives, because they won't be available unless you're a member anymore. But the way that we will do this is we have a topic du jour, which we will dive into, spend about 20 minutes on that, and then we will field your questions. So send in your questions via YouTube, via Facebook, via the Facebook group, via TikTok, and we will get to your questions. Now, all of the information we're giving you is Arizona-based, and we are not your lawyers. We don't become your lawyers. This is not a substitute for actual legal advice. It is just information.
Yeah. And we're going to wrap up a little early today because I've got to hit the road. So we'll wrap up around about 1:45. Okay. So we can jump into the Q&A a little bit earlier. Okay. But yeah, if you want to sign up, go to winwithoutlawschool.com, sign up for our email list. It's free. And then you'll start getting all of the information, and looking to take this, into a space that's even more create more community of people who are really looking to get help with their cases and take it offline from the public. So please join us. We'd love to see you there. And I don't know about you, Billy, but I've always noticed that things kind of heat up in the summer in family law, especially in August. It seems like August, things just blow up. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's been your experience.
Totally. I was looking today, and we already have 35 clients that signed up this month. Like that's a lot for us. Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's almost like people get through the summer and then it's just like, I can't take it anymore. And school gets back in. And it's just, I've had the most dramatic cases unfold in the month of August in the past.
Yeah.
So, this could be a good time to join Win Without Law School, start getting some information. And, if you see that something's on the horizon within your family, you can be ready to get some additional legal information. So, that is that. We've got a lot of resources in there. So, please join. And I know Billy's been sharing her divorce planner, which a lot of people have been really loving.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about what people can do when they're under attack and when they feel personally attacked and they're trying to fight for their children and get themselves divorced. What can they do?
I think one of the most powerful tools is to have a case strategy or case objectives, like to have some clarity about what your goals are. Because, you may remember in law school, there was always this talk of the forest or the trees. Are you looking at the individual trees or are you looking at the forest as a whole? And if you have your overall case strategy or case goals, that's looking at the entire forest and kind of gives you this solid foundation to go back to. And then when you're under attack, that's like, the individual trees and looking at these little issues. But if you can zoom out and be like, okay, look, he or she is upset about this thing, but overall, I'm trying to get us to joint legal decision making, or I'm trying to get to an essentially equal parenting plan. And then taking it in that context and seeing what you can do to maybe try to get back to your overall case goals. I think that's one thing that can be helpful instead of just getting caught up in a little issue that's really stressful.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things I talked to my partner about, so he was a litigator for a lot of years. And one of the things I explained to him is like, one of the hard things about family law is your case is constantly evolving. So with other areas of law, there's a car accident or there's a breach of contract and there's the stuff that happened. And then you present your case based on the facts that you already know. And in family law, it's evolving all the time. New facts are happening all the time. New moves are happening all the time. And I think it can really throw off people who come in with one strategy, thinking that things are going to be a certain way. And then, let's say they co-parented fairly well when they were living together. Maybe mom did most of the work, dad didn't interfere. Mom thought that would continue, and now it's not. So you might have started off saying, yeah, we can have joint legal. Yeah, we can have equal parenting time. And now each party might be thinking that they should be the sole custodial parent. So how do you manage all of the changes when you're under attack, and how should that impact your overall strategy?
Yeah. Number one is reconnecting with why you're going through the process. So, why you're divorcing or why you broke up and, need to establish custody or, and really looking to untangle emotionally from all of the emotional patterns that you and your partner have established over the years. And I think that it could be helpful to really focus on the new freedom if that's unfolding in your life. Because if you keep focusing on the entanglement of the relationship and the drama around that, then you're really still stuck in all of the entanglement of that relationship. So starting to get some freedom emotionally, I think can be really helpful. And then just really being clear about who you are. If somebody is falsely accusing you of child abuse, be it physical, emotional, verbal, but that you're not like that, then, connecting with who you are and then finding defenses to what the attacks that you're under. But I don't think, I think one of the worst things is to get into this place where you're just like constantly in defense mode and you're thinking of every single potential defense that you can come up with, because then it's like the fight or flight. You're just fighting and you're really upset and stressed.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think if you're in that mode, you have to set boundaries for your own emotional safety, which is one of the things that we have to do as lawyers. We have to compartmentalize. We have to, and it's easier for us. It's not our, if it's not, it's just easier for us, but you have to set boundaries differently. And it might mean that you do not take phone calls or you do not communicate in person. You just don't. You minimize the potential to have these issues evolve.
Yeah. And I think that's a really great point. What are the boundaries that need to be put up to start creating a different way of interacting with each other?
Right.
And I have seen that come up in cases where it's like, okay, it was a married couple, they're going through a divorce, they start living separately, but one spouse just comes into the old marital home and just, hey, I'm here and I need to get some stuff for the kids. And, and it's just like, wait a second. No, you can't just come in here like that anymore.
Yeah. Or your new apartment, you get a new apartment, you set this new space up and the other person just barges in and starts walking through your house. And you're like so conflicted because you're like, okay, well, this is the other parent. Yeah, they should see where our children sleep. And yeah, we used to share this, but like, that's not okay anymore. How do you set those boundaries?
You just do, right? You
Yeah.
just do.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You just say this is not, we're not going to do this anymore. You also can do exchanges differently. You can have somebody else do exchanges for you. You can have exchanges happen at third-party sites. I think that controlling exchanges is one of the most important things. I know that exchanges when things are volatile, exchanging the children can lead to a whole lot of stuff happening.
What are your thoughts about exchanges at like a police station?
I mean, sometimes that's the safest way to go. I would try to avoid that. If you have to be at a police station because mom and dad are so explosive or there's a danger to one parent, I would try to get a third party to do the exchange. If you are at a police station, like your children are going to remember that. They're going to remember that my mom and dad took us to the police station once a week or twice a week. And that signifies danger, right? To them. Like you go to the police when you're in trouble and when you need help. So you're telling, you're telling your children that they're in trouble or they're in danger. I want to alleviate that. I want it to be I want them to be in a bubble of, they have no idea that mom or dad are suffering. So that's my thought. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, I understand why some people pick that location. And I mean, you usually don't really see any police officers in the parking lot, but the kids are going to know where you are. So I agree with you. If you can avoid that, that's great. And this conversation reminds me of earlier in my career, I practiced out in a small town called Parker in La Paz County. And we had one Superior Court and one Superior Court judge, Judge Burke. And very great judge. He was on the bench for years. He was a wonderful judge, very mild-mannered, very level-headed. But if you had a case and evidence was presented that one of the parents called the cops on the other parent and the kids saw the other parent getting arrested or, having to deal with the cops, he would get so angry. And he'd be like, how can you guys do this to your kids? How can you put your kids in the middle like this? And it was the only time I would really see him get worked up. And I think that I think he was making a really good point, which was, look, you guys need to think about your kids. You guys need to get the drama level down, and you need to figure out a way to co-parent without getting the police involved all the time. And so it was, a lot of times as lawyers, sometimes that's an easy out for us. Well, look, just call the police if that's happening. But there can be a consequence to calling the police. Of course, at times it's justified. It needs to happen.
Right.
But it also can backfire if you've got a judge like Judge Burke.
Which is so terrible. Like so terrible. Like if one parent is being attacked by another parent and you need the police and the parent gets arrested, like you have to protect yourself.
Of course.
And then on the other hand, if it can be avoided, you've got to avoid it. Like knowing,
like if the other parent's 5 minutes late for an exchange and you're calling the police, like that's not good.
Yeah. There's a difference between like you're being attacked and you need help, call the police. If you're trying to make a record, please don't call the police. you can make a record a lot of ways without calling the police.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that can be really tough, trying to figure out when is the right time to call and not. But I think you laid out a good baseline, which is if you are threatened, physically or, in any way, yeah, you can call. But yeah, you may want to have the kids go over to a neighbor's house. You may, try to shield your kids from the event as much as possible.
Another really cool coping mechanism or something that you can try. So if you all have not played with ChatGPT, ChatGPT is a really fun, really cool, free tool. And one of the things that you can do is you can go into ChatGPT. What I have done is I've turned on my dictation. I'll turn on my dictation and I'll say everything I want ChatGPT to write into a letter. And then I'll tell it the tone I want, and it will take my bleh and it will turn it into this, formal kind of detached sounding, and you can tell it what tone you want. But so you could use that to communicate in a way that was so different. Like you could become a whole different person with the way you communicate. You could change your entire voice and communication using this free AI tool, which would be kind of fun.
That's
Might be worth trying.
Yeah. And, that's a good point about if you're going to write a letter in response. And what that reminds me of is this concept of, yeah, you often do need to refute attacks, allegations. Like if somebody's like, you abused our child during your parenting time, I want to just ignore that. I would want to get a response. No, I disagree. You don't have to go into all the details necessarily. Of course, depending on the situation, you may want to, but making a denial, I think, can be important instead of just ignoring stuff that's going on. I think you can wait. You don't have to do it right away. You can let some of the emotions subside, but I would want to respond to false allegations.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So let's say your child goes back to the other parent and you get an email saying, I don't know, little Joey says that you abused him. Is that what you're thinking could happen? I mean,
or he's got a bruise on his arm. What did you do?
Yeah, that's a good one. He's got a bruise on his arm. What did you do? So either you know what happened or you have no idea, right? So there's only two possible answers here. I wasn't aware there was a bruise. Can you show me what happened? Like, or yeah, he was on his bike, he fell, or whatever. He and his siblings were fighting, and this is what happened, and here's how I handled it, or whatever it might be. But you do need to provide information responding to whatever the allegations are. Some of the allegations can be so ridiculous, it's hard to know how to respond.
True. Yeah. And sometimes there's so much that comes in, it can get exhausting to keep responding, but I still do recommend just adopting a consistent position, and it can be as simple as, no, that's not true. No, I disagree. But you do want to maintain a consistent position.
Absolutely. Yeah. Many times you're going to get attacked as a parent simply for leaving. You've ruined our kids' lives. They're miserable because of you. Look at how our kids are suffering, and this never would have happened if you didn't do blah, 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 blah. Those types of accusations hurt, right? Because we care very much about our children. How do you think people should respond to those accusations or allegations or comments?
And I think that's a lot of the stuff that's been going on is this, when you're getting blamed and attacked for stuff that really isn't your fault necessarily.
Yeah.
And I think that's just where you've got to really connect with yourself and figure out what your values are and your self-confidence, and remind yourself that you disagree, that you don't see things the same way that they do.
Right.
And just agree to disagree. You don't need to convince them of anything.
No.
But I think that's the big thing is, are you going to let their perspective ruin your day? Or are you going to be like, that's just their perspective and I don't buy it.
Also, Also taking that and turning it into action. Okay, if so-and-so is struggling, what are we going to do differently? Can we sign them up for tutoring at school? Can we get them into a counselor? How is it that we are going to take our reality, which is our family is changing, acknowledge that that's hard on our children, and move forward together as opposed to blaming one person? So you really can spin it back. I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can reject the blame and ask them for their proposed solution, which doesn't involve getting back together.
All right, why don't we move into some Q&A? Now, for the Q&A, this is legal information only. It's not legal advice. This is based on Arizona law, and Billy and I do not become your lawyers by answering these questions.
Okay, first one is, what factors does a judge usually look at when one parent is scheduling? We have so many that just popped in. Scheduling and attending all the appointments, and the other parent is always complaining about not being included.
I mean, about, scheduling the appointments, I guess one question I would have is, are you wanting to attend the appointments? Are you wanting to just know the information? Is it going to be easier to go through just the provider's office than through your co-parent? Obviously, I'd want to know some more details about what's going on, but this can come up quite a bit. It's something that I found usually gets resolved through better communication, maybe through Our Family Wizard or one of those apps. What are your thoughts?
This does come up a lot. And usually in a married couple, one person does take point on whatever it might be. Whatever it might be. It might be that, like in my marriage, we had a fairly balanced parenting relationship. So my ex might have taken care of orthodontia and prescriptions, and I might have taken care of dentists and doctors. That's how kind of we might have handled it. Other families, it is usually, or could be, mom does this and dad stays out of it. And when that continues after separation, that's when moms can get themselves into trouble. And I think this question is coming from a mom who's saying that I'm scheduling and attending the other appointments, and the other person is just complaining about not being included. I believe you have to change your behavior and your patterns when you break up. What do you think about that?
Right. Yeah. And how easy is it to just send a text, hey, there's an appointment on Thursday at 9 for the dentist, or whatever. You can just keep the other person informed in a really easy way, potentially.
Yeah. And it is a little challenging. My one kiddo had a thing, and I scheduled him at the dermatologist. And then I let my ex know, hey, I've scheduled so-and-so at the dermatologist. And I think he felt a little annoyed that I had scheduled the dermatologist without discussing it first. But it got resolved relatively quickly. He started taking over follow-up appointments at the dermatologist, and it was fine. I think if you've got another parent who wants to be involved, it is a time to let them and maybe encourage them. And if this person is complaining always about not being included, the next time before you schedule that appointment, maybe reach out, text the other parent and say, little Johnny's got a fever. He needs to get in. Did you want to schedule that appointment? Like, you can, that is, you're creating evidence, you're giving opportunity, you're letting them determine, do they really want to be involved, or do they want to attack you? Because it could be whatever. Yeah. All right, next question. After filing my response to his petition for joint custody, how do we work out parenting time for now?
It's a great question. And this is a really good time to start exploring settlement. So number one is for you to come up with what your proposal is. What do you want the schedule to be? And you're going to want to get into the details, not just, every other week. It's like, well, what day are you doing the exchange? What time? How's the exchange happening? What's the communication schedule when the kids are with the other parent? Any of those details, it would be really good to think about those and start creating terms. And then if you are able to come up with a proposal, you can share that with your co-parent and then enter into negotiations. Another option is, at least I'm in Yavapai County, we have a really good mediation program that just focuses on legal decision-making and parenting time. So you can request a mediation and, sit down with it's usually two mediators, and they're really good, and try to work out legal decision making and parenting time. Those are some ideas for the stage of your case that you're at. And then another good thing is just to start working through a schedule and see how it goes, and see if you like it or if you want to make changes.
Right, right, right. And understand it can be a tough time. It can be a really tough time. There's no temporary order. Things are different. You do not want to allow yourself to be cut off from your children. You don't. You do not. You absolutely want to maintain contact. And at the same time, if you're being denied that contact, and if you cannot work out anything, you have to file for a temporary order. Now, let's say you want FaceTimes every single day, and the other parent's like, no, I don't want you FaceTiming the kids every single day. That's going to be disruptive. Instead, I'm proposing 3 days a week or whatever. You got to be flexible, take what you can get, and understand if there is no agreement on something like that, then you can't have it unless you ask a court to order it.
Mm-hmm. And, getting the court involved, if you have an attorney, that's going to cost several $1,000s to get a temporary order.
Yeah.
And
it's not fast.
Yeah. And then you got to get on the court's calendar. You don't know what the judge is going to do. The temporary orders hearings are really short, no more than an hour. So you don't have a lot of time to present evidence. So I think the knee-jerk reaction is, I'll just go get a temporary order. But I always want to caution people, yeah, that is a good option, but are you ready to spend that money? We don't know what the judge is going to do. Is there any way that you can just reach an agreement? Because that's going to be the most expeditious and efficient way.
Right. And it might not be perfect. Like, it's okay if it's not perfect, because it's not going to be perfect. Okay. Next question. Uncontested divorce. Separated husband is wanting to pay child support via direct deposit to me. Is that allowed, or do you need to go through the child support clearinghouse?
So you're going to have to be very cognizant of what your paperwork says, because if you're using any of the court set forms, they all have language that is set up for everything to go through the clearinghouse. So you can modify that language and make it so that it's a direct payment, but there's some risks in doing that. Number one, the clearinghouse is nice because it keeps a very clear record of all of the payments. And so there's no dispute about whether or not a payment was given or not. And a very nice summary can be printed out that can be taken to court. There are definitely a lot of benefits about going through the clearinghouse. So I would go that direction if you can, but if you trust the other side and you think this is a good deal, you just got to really make sure that your paperwork is written correctly so that your payments aren't required to go through the clearinghouse, and the courts might give you some resistance on it.
That's interesting. So I often encourage people not to use the clearinghouse when they don't want to. And many times in uncontested parties, they don't want to. And they don't want to because there's an $8 fee and you have to wait to get the money. And sometimes they screw it up. And I get all that. My advice, if you are not doing it through the clearinghouse, is have in your paperwork or some agreement that says child support will be X amount paid on X day through Zelle or through Venmo or through PayPal with X memo, because then you're essentially creating a clearinghouse-like record. Yeah, you're very clear about what it's what the payment is for, because
it's not cash.
It's not cash. It's not checks. It's not cash. It's not going to get lost. You've got a record printed out once a year. And I think that I like that almost better than the clearinghouse personally, but a court, if you don't agree to that, will absolutely order the clearinghouse. But I don't think there's a lot of risk on a temporary basis. If you don't have an order, that's fine. If there is an order, then there is risk, because a court could find that your direct payments are gifts, or they might not. And the law says that they can find that they're gifts, but many times they don't find them that way. And it's just a little messy. Mm-hmm. So if you can avoid mess, that's always good. All right, next question. There is a protective order in place. Mom refuses to make arrangements for exchange of the children, leveraging the order protection against her as to why. We are pre-mediation. We have no orders in place for parenting time. What can I do?
Okay, so there's a order protection, I guess, just between the parents. It doesn't sound like the children are named.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a pending divorce, but no orders have been issued.
Mm-hmm.
So the order protection, if it's in a different court, it needs to be transferred to the Superior Court that's hearing the divorce. And then the Superior Court judge can potentially make changes to it if needed. Also, there can be, at the Superior Court level, the judge can make some modifications for exchanges within the order protection. So that's one route. Of course, seeking a temporary order is another option. You can seek to contest the order protection by requesting a hearing and seek to have it dismissed or modified. Those are some potential options.
Mm-hmm. And many, many times when you have joint children, the order of protection in Maricopa County will have language that says you are allowed to communicate. Usually it's via email about the kids. So if that's the case and you want to see your kids, I would encourage you to email the other party and propose a schedule. Make sure you are only talking about your kids.
Right.
The other thing you can do if there's no order protection against, between the kids is you can pick them up. You can pick them up from school or from daycare and make sure that you are emailing the other party to propose an exchange. You want to get an agreement, but and you can contest that hearing. You can ask to contest the order of protection, but you're not completely stuck. You do have options. You do want to be careful though. So I'm glad that you're being careful. All right. Is it illegal for a girlfriend of my ex-husband who is in prison to take pictures of my kids and send them to him without my permission?
I have no idea.
We got a girlfriend of the father. The father is in prison. The girlfriend is taking pictures of the kids and sending them to the father. Is it illegal? It's not.
I don't know if it's illegal. It may rise to the level of harassment that you could get an injunction against harassment for, but whether or not that actually fits within the definition of harassment, I think it's going to depend on how she's getting the pictures. Is she let's say she's through their window and taking the picture? Is she going to the school unannounced? How is she capturing these pictures? I think that would play a big role in determining whether or not it's harassment.
Right. Is she taking your social media posts and sending them along? That's probably more likely. If she's peeping in your window, yes, that would be illegal. If she's taking pictures that you've posted on social media and sending them to their dad, it is not illegal. And generally speaking, I looked this up because I got this question earlier in the week. Generally speaking, there's nothing illegal about posting pictures online or taking pictures of kids in public. There's nothing illegal about it, which can feel icky. And maybe the law needs to change, but that's what it is. Next question. My ex wants half the equity of my house. Is the value at filing or is the value the current value?
Well, it depends. There's case law in Arizona. I think it's the SMART case, and it talks about how in order to determine the value, it's an equitable standard. So whatever is fair in the circumstances. So that could be data service. It could be current value. It's something that's highly litigated often, especially with the changing real estate market right now. There's a lot of questions about, well, what is the actual value? Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've been dealing with a lot in a lot of my cases now.
Because I think we have a whole live on that. So I would encourage you to go look at our live on that. Next question. I've been the primary parent for 8 years. We have a 50-50 timeshare. The co-parent now wants to change the primary residence. How likely will that be? I'm confused.
Yeah. I'll just focus on this question of how likely is it to get a modification, because I think that's part of the question. The person requesting the modification has to show a substantial and continuing change in circumstances. So that's the first question, is what's changed? And then number two, if you guys are disagreeing, no, it's not easy to get a modification. That means you're going to have to go to a contested trial to prevail. So no, it's not easy. I have no idea what the merits of the case are or what a judge may or may not do. Obviously, we don't have very many facts here, but in my experience, unless you're in agreement, a modification can be very challenging to achieve.
Yeah. And I really, so I'm looking at this question. I've been the primary parent for 8 years with a 50-50 timeshare. If what you mean is on paper, it says 50-50, but you've had the kids the vast majority of the time, and now your co-parent wants to change the court order, that would be difficult. But if your co-parent wants to now go by the court order and go to 50-50, they're entitled to do that any day, unless
I know,
you
like
change.
in the decree or final order, you can designate one house as the primary house for welfare benefits. So
Right.
maybe that's what's the changes, is to get the other house designated as the primary house for
Sure.
benefit purposes.
Yep. The other time I've seen this come up is with regards to school districts. So there's a client that's got a pretty special needs kiddo, and the school district has to pay for the program that is most suitable for this child's needs. And if the parents live in two different school districts, there can be a difference in which schools the school district has to provide. So that comes up sometimes. So definitely want to talk to an attorney, probably if you've got a complicated issue like that. Probably our last question for the day, since you've got to go. Do judges listen to kids if they want to live with the other parent?
Yes, they do, because it's one of the factors of the best interest standards. What are the wishes of the child as to decision-making and parenting time? However, the child doesn't testify. So you got to be cognizant of how is the judge going to learn about what the child wants. So you would need to testify to that or provide witnesses who will testify to that. You can request that the judge talk to the child in chambers in what's called an in-camera interview, but it's discretionary. The judge doesn't have to grant it. So you file a motion, the other side gets to respond, and ultimately the judge decides. And in my experience, those often get denied. Certain judges do them a lot, but often a lot of judges just say no unless there's some compelling reason. And when the kid meets in chambers with the judge, it is recorded. So both sides get to hear the conversation. And, strategically, you're going to have to question, is your child going to say the same things to you that, they're telling you? Will they say the same things to the judge in the judge's chambers in a recorded conversation? You never know. Sometimes kids do. Sometimes they feel bad and they say different things because they want, they don't want to upset one of their parents. So I think the call, whether or not you're going to do an in-camera interview is a very strategic call. And then you really got to be cognizant of how are you going to get this evidence before the judge, and how are you going to, really get across the essence of what your child wants and convince the judge that that's true. But keep in mind, it's just one factor. There's a lot of other factors the court considers. And I think the older the child, the more consideration, the more weight that will have. I mean, if you have a 3-year-old, you're not going to be like, she wants to be with mom all the time. It's like, well, yeah, she's 3, but if you've got a 15-year-old, that's going to be different.
Right. And also think about other ways that you can meet, that you can present evidence. What's different about your houses? Why is one environment better than the other? Don't rely solely on, I don't recommend that you rely solely on your child's opinion as a reason. You have to prove best interest. And their opinion is one factor, like you said. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we are about wrapping up for today. If this is interesting to you, remember you have to go register at winwithoutlawschool.com in order to be included in future lives, in order to get your questions answered. And we will be able to get questions in advance, let everyone know what the topic is. So head on over there and register. Julie, great to see you as always. Talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.